The night wasn't about pleasantries. It began with a secret wedding revealed at my table, followed by a sudden ask for money, and ended with dignity choosing the rules. A phone buzz cut through this room, and Jade's voice walked in, cheerful enough to bruise. "I'm Dolores, Porch Storyteller, truth with grace." Lionel looked toward this chair beside me, measuring whether calm still held. Patrice set her hands on this table, the way you steady a picture frame. Andre kept the corners quiet, and Malcolm hovered between apology and habit. "We did it yesterday," Jade said, and the air cooled as if a window had opened on its own. I let the words sit where consequence could see them. No accusations, just breath long enough to hold shape. "We'll share photos later," Malcolm added, careful, rehearsed, hoping rehearsal could pass for respect. I met their eyes without blinking, then invited them to sit, not with ceremony. Only a nod that said we would finish the conversation we didn't get to start. A hush settled, the kind that tells you the evening intends to remember every syllable that follows. "Thank you for telling me," I began, so the record would learn courtesy first. We keep difficult talk inside this room because walls, like elders, know how to hold and not spill. Jade smiled small and reached for warmth without earning it. Malcolm's gaze visited the floor, then me, then a spot nowhere in particular. "It was intimate," he said, a phrase that sounded like a fence built yesterday. I nodded once, then placed the truth where it belonged. "You married without me, and today you arrived because support has always arrived from here." Patrice breathed evenly, counting out patients the way nurses count a pulse. Andre added one quiet yes to the idea that dignity travels best when everyone stays seated. Lionel didn't move, but the steadiness beside me felt like a hand. I promised a gentle tone and clear arithmetic, both necessary, both overdue. "Let's begin with respect," I said, and the evening agreed by not interrupting. While they settled into these chairs, I reviewed the months that taught me to read patterns without a notebook. Gratitude turned scheduled, then conditional, then scarce, and my help stopped being a bridge and became the road itself. Rent reminders had calendars for legs, and emergencies learned my number by heart. I kept count in breath, not ink, but breath adds up just fine. Lionel warned softly that generosity must keep its spine. I smiled and promised I would borrow his when mine trembled. Patrice saw it first, the way my yes arrived before their pleas. Andre called it a habit with invoices attached to affection. Jade called it family. My ribs called it depletion. Malcolm shrugged at miracles that kept arriving on time, and I taught my chest to quiet the thunder. Tonight's announcement didn't surprise me. It simply named what the math already understood. So I laid the ledger of memory on the table, silent, invisible, exact. Certainty seldom shouts. It nods like someone who has already put on their coat. I had asked careful questions across ordinary days and watched ordinary answers tilt. Invitations narrowed until a door closed around a story that used to include me. Meanwhile, kindness here learned new rules. No rescuing where responsibility should grow. No loans disguised as love. I practiced small refusals that sounded like deep breaths. Lionel's counsel was simple. Protect peace early, not only after the fire starts. Patrice repeated that boundaries are kindness with measurements. Andre added that clarity saves everyone's time, including those who dislike it. When today's news arrived bright and belated, I chose stillness over spectacle. We would not rehearse hurt. We would position it, then measure it, then build better. Jade glanced at Malcolm for a cue. Malcolm glanced at me for permission. I glanced at the truth and let it speak. "We'll keep to facts," I said, letting the syllables land like coasters under glasses. "You married yesterday, and I learned it today. That is one fact. My help has been constant. That is another. I have requests now, and they are reasonable. Respect the person who steadied your months or lived by your own calendar entirely." Patrice asked one careful question about promises made last week. Silence gave the answer the shape of a bell. Andre confirmed that we are generous people, not open accounts. Lionel breathed in as if to say amen without saying anything at all. Jade tried a laugh that searched for a rug to sweep under. Malcolm offered explanations that repeated themselves like songs that play when the station can't find a new one. I thanked them for coming because gratitude can hold a boundary steady. Then I placed my first decision on this table where everyone could see it without flinching. Support changes here, I said, and the room adopted the sentence like a guest that would be staying a while. Not punishment, stewardship, not anger, adjustment. I would help with processes that teach strength, not with patterns that erase it. Patrice translated it into simpler weather. Rain becomes mist, not flood. Andre added a sentence about calendars, how grown people earn their own pages. Lionel's eyes held mine, long enough to remind me I wasn't alone in this chair. Jade's smile thinned to a wire. Malcolm's shoulders learned gravity. I kept my palms open on this table, neither pleading nor pointing. We can talk logistics kindly, I offered, or we can talk later through proper channels. The phrase proper channels carries its own posture, and the air straightened. I chose to keep everyone seated in grace while practicing a new grammar. Fewer rescues, more responsibility, and every yes rehearsed for fairness. A second voice entered, not a storm, a witness, someone invited because clarity prefers company. They greeted no one first. They laid out dates and messages while watching the floorboards for argument. Malcolm's breath caught, then evened. Jade's fingers traced circles only she could see. We kept titles minimal and words plain. Expectation, agreement, boundary, cost. The witness confirmed what my heartbeat already tallied. I had been funding without footing, and gratitude had grown seasonal. Patrice asked them to repeat the part about last month's promise. They did, and the calendar in the story finally looked like itself. Andre thanked them for speaking plainly. Lionel's quiet approved the architecture of facts. I held the room steady and asked everyone to look at the same page. No raised voices, no performed surprise. The witness nodded, accepted tea that wasn't here, and kept going. When they finished, truth felt less dramatic and more like a chair, finally placed where it belonged. I named the day that refused to blur, the one wrapped in white secrecy, and posted later as celebration. While my phone slept uninvited, confetti learned to live without me. I did not audition for grief. I let it take its turn, small and honest. Jade tried to file it under misunderstanding. Malcolm tried to staple it to stress. Calmly, I set those folders aside. Misfiled, mislabeled, misleading. Patrice reached across this table with stillness that works better than hugs on camera. Andre added one sentence about reverence for mothers, brief and true. Lionel folded one breath into another until the room matched his pace. I reminded us all that consequence is not revenge. It is the natural inheritance of choices. Then I brought the conversation back to the ledger of respect. Here is what trust costs. Here is how we pay. And here is how we stop spending what we don't have. Malcolm asked for time, which is a request I respect when it walks in with accountability. I offered time with conditions, honesty, documentation, and plans that don't lean on my spine. Jade shifted, aiming for charm. I redirected us toward clarity. Patrice kept count of interruptions and found fewer each minute. Andre suggested we write nothing down tonight. Words can be binding without ink when spoken in front of people who remember. Lionel adjusted his posture the way lighthouses adjust nothing at all. I explained that help, if any, would be transitional and transparent, never quiet or automatic again. Malcolm nodded like someone learning a new language by immersion. Jade's eyes searched for an exit that didn't require apology. Exits like that don't exist here. We paused so the room could memorize that boundary without smudging. I offered a bridge, not a highway, toward stability that belonged to them. 3 practical steps, all inside their control, none of them financed by my future. Patrice summarized them kindly, trimming any drama that tried to hitch a ride. Andre agreed to share a list of community resources tomorrow. Information is a gift that strengthens the receiver. Lionel reminded us with silence that dignity is the floor, not the ceiling. Malcolm exhaled a thank you that almost sounded like adulthood. Jade managed a nod that didn't insult the furniture. I confirmed that love remains, but love will no longer carry decisions made without me. We closed the live moment with a prayer-shaped quiet. No clasped hands, just shared oxygen and a promise to keep words clean. They stood, then sat again, then stood for real, and the door did its work. After they left, this room felt larger, as if honesty had returned square inches to the edges. Patrice stayed, and we folded silence into tea that exists only in tone. Andre checked the plan again, reading it like weather, not like indictment. Lionel asked if I needed anything and accepted my no the way good men do, without offense. I sat with my pulse until it chose a calmer rhythm. A few messages arrived and learned to wait their turn. I wrote nothing, but the air kept minutes. Patrice whispered that my steadiness tonight would echo into better days. I believed her because she learned the ritual from me. Before sleep, Lionel touched my shoulder lightly, a period, not a paragraph. The house closed its eyes and taught me how to do the same. Morning returned with instructions as simple as breath. Eat, call, schedule, rest. I confirmed a conversation with a neutral guide who knows how boundaries hold. I updated a small circle that guards my peace and asked them to keep their replies unadorned. Patrice stopped by with her even laughter and left it on the table like a lamp. Andre checked my calendar against my energy and protected both. Lionel hummed an old tune that keeps storms outside their names. I said aloud for my own ears that generosity survives discipline and becomes more beautiful. Messages kept arriving. I answered the kind ones and let the others practice patience. By evening, the room felt like a partner who can carry weight without groaning. I slept, like someone whose dreams finally have chairs. A report reached the proper place, not with fireworks, but with careful sentences that traveled upright. Institutions move like glaciers, slow, deliberate, faithful to their own gravity. I gave them what they needed, then released the outcome into the river of process. Patrice reminded me that accountability should wear dignity, not spectacle. Andre said communities get stronger when standards are actually enforced. Lionel folded today into yesterday with the quiet mathematics he trusts. From this chair, I chose not to refresh anything that wasn't my job to refresh. Jade's next message sounded like a proposal for truce that avoided the word apology. Malcolm sounded like someone realizing bills have names. I answered neither yet, because timing participates in truth-telling. The room applauded the restraint by remaining a room and not turning into a courtroom. An official reply arrived later, measured and sober, matching the weight of what had been carried here. No fireworks again, just structure. Expectations clarified, lanes painted, consequences described without venom. Patrice read it twice and found no thorns hidden in the ivy. Andre said, "Good systems whisper, they don't shout." Lionel set his breath to the document's tempo and let the house match it. I felt no triumph, only relief that language can sometimes behave. I sent a brief acknowledgement and kept my voice cotton soft. Jade's silence afterward was louder than her earlier explanations. Malcolm asked whether help might return in small ways. I said possibly, with receipts of respect. The room, wiser than all of us, held the yes and no together without spilling either. Work resumed as ministry, quiet tasks that rebuild what drama disassembled. I reviewed my routine and removed everything that served guilt instead of goodness. Patrice offered a list of small joys that cost courage, but not cash. Andre reminded me that rest counts as productivity when the heart has been on overtime. Lionel suggested a walk we didn't take. Instead, we breathed until staying indoors felt like a walk anyway. Messages softened. 2 included apologies that attempted sincerity and almost reached it. I replied with boundaries that sounded like lullabies. Gentle tone, strong verbs. A neighbor left kind words at the edge of the day. I let them sit without overwatering. I stacked my hopes small and neat on the corner of this table. The pile didn't wobble, neither did I. The witness returned once, not to reopen, but to confirm closure. We thanked them for courage and asked them to keep their evenings for joy again. Patrice celebrated by telling a story that had nothing to do with repair. Andre laughed the way doors sound when they finally stop sticking. Lionel asked if I wanted to archive anything aloud. I said yes, and named lessons into the room. Consequence teaches better than lectures. Gratitude mustn't be a receipt. Love is not payroll. The walls learned the lines and agreed to remind me when necessary. I promised myself to visit this chair on hard days and let it teach my spine. Outside events continued, as they always do. Inside, serenity kept good hours. The house exhaled, and I kept up. I slid an invisible page across this table and wrote the story for myself with voice only. Not a manifesto, a map. Headings like principles, not people. Verbs like choose, return, release. Patrice asked to hear a paragraph and cried exactly once. Andre suggested an ending that faced forward, not inward. Lionel said the preface didn't need apology. I erased it gratefully. I kept names minimal and wisdom large, so others could borrow without feeling watched. Somewhere between sentence 3 and 4, my chest learned a new rhythm. When I finished, the quiet around us felt taller, like a ceiling raised through kindness instead of carpentry. A small circle read the map and sent back candles instead of fireworks. Seen, one said, strengthened, another, steadied, a third. Patrice gathered those words and hung them inside my voice. Andre asked whether I might share it someday. I said perhaps with the room beside me. Lionel smiled and said the room already travels with me when I speak. Jade's newest message arrived with more humility than polish. Malcolm's arrived with more detail than request. I answered both with brief compassion and longer boundaries. Help, if any, would be education, not subsidy. The evening set its hands in prayer position without asking for a speech, and we let it. Seasons turned in place, and I learned which thoughts deserved chairs and which deserved the door. Forgiveness arrived with many handles. I used the ones that didn't hurt my wrists. Trust, I decided, requires new lumber, not a coat of paint. Patrice's laughter returned like a clock that finally keeps time. Andre's questions kept us honest without feeling like court. Lionel's steadiness became the furniture nothing crashes into. Jade and Malcolm learned to draft plans without penciling in my account. I wished them wisdom without volunteering my roof. The room hummed approval. A tune only houses old enough to understand weather can sing. Tonight we gather again. Same room, same table. A different grammar entirely. Patrice tells a light story. Andre tosses in a line. Lionel's smile edits nothing. Malcolm and Jade are elsewhere, hopefully learning the arithmetic of their own days. We honor what ended without letting it define what remains. I won't pretend this was easy, but now I know where to stand when it's hard. Gentleness is still my first language. Boundaries are its punctuation. Courage keeps the rhythm. I raise no glasses. I keep breathing and let gratitude take the open chair. The ledger closes without slamming, and the future opens like a door that remembers my name. I am steady, and this room agrees.